Emile Durkheim, what suicide statistics accidentally revealed about the glue holding society together. Here is a subject you would not expect to find at the founding of an entire academic discipline. Suicide rates, broken down by religion, region, and marital status in 19th century Europe.
And yet that is precisely the unlikely material Emile Durkheim used to prove sociology could be a genuine science, with real evidence, not just philosophical speculation about human nature.
Durkheim, born in 1858 in eastern France, is often credited as one of the founders of sociology as a formal discipline. What was he actually trying to prove?
He was trying to establish that society itself is a real, observable thing, not just a convenient shorthand for a pile of individual choices added together. He coined the term social facts for this: patterns of belief and behavior that exist above and beyond any single individual, that shape people's choices whether they realize it or not, and that can be studied with the same rigor a natural scientist applies to physical phenomena. Language, religion, legal codes, even something as apparently personal as the collective mood of a nation, all count as social facts in his framework, real forces with real, measurable effects.
Which is a genuinely bold claim for its time, that you could study society scientifically the way you study chemistry.
Extremely bold, and Durkheim wanted a dramatic demonstration to prove it, which is exactly why he chose suicide, seemingly the most intensely personal, individual act imaginable. If he could show that suicide rates followed consistent, predictable social patterns, patterns that held up across large populations regardless of any individual person's specific private reasons, he would have powerful proof that social forces genuinely shape even our most private decisions.
Walk us through what he actually found.
In his 1897 study, simply titled Suicide, Durkheim compiled and analyzed suicide statistics across different European regions and religious groups, and found strikingly consistent patterns. Protestant populations showed meaningfully higher suicide rates than Catholic populations living in similar economic conditions. Married people showed lower rates than unmarried people. Rates rose during periods of sudden economic disruption, both downturns and, more surprisingly, sudden booms. His explanation was not that any particular religion or marital status directly caused suicidal thoughts. It was that these groups differed in social integration, how tightly woven a person is into a stable community with clear shared norms, and in social regulation, how clearly a community's expectations and limits actually structure a person's daily life and sense of purpose.
And out of that came a term that has genuinely outlived its original narrow context: anomie.
Anomie meaning roughly normlessness, a state where a society's shared rules and expectations weaken or break down, leaving individuals without a clear, stable sense of what is expected of them or where they fit. Durkheim argued anomie was especially dangerous during periods of rapid social change, precisely because old norms collapse faster than new ones can form to replace them, leaving people genuinely adrift even when their material circumstances might be objectively improving.
Which connects directly to the historical moment he was actually living through.
19th century, France was undergoing extraordinarily rapid industrialization and urbanization. Small, tight-knit rural communities emptying into fast-growing, impersonal industrial cities within a single generation. Durkheim watched traditional religious authority, extended family structures, and small community bonds weaken rapidly, replaced by a more anonymous, fragmented urban existence, and he considered this exact transition, wrenching and disorienting for the people actually living through it, to be a real-world laboratory for studying anomie directly.
He also has this other major framework, mechanical versus organic solidarity, which explains how entirely different kinds of societies hold together.
Mechanical solidarity describes smaller, more traditional societies, where people are held together mainly by being similar to each other, shared beliefs, shared rituals, a shared way of life, and a relatively simple division of labor. Organic solidarity describes larger, more modern industrial societies, where people are held together instead by mutual interdependence, a complex division of labor in which everyone relies on countless specialized others, The farmer needs the factory worker needs the doctor needs the teacher, and so on, a very different kind of glue built on difference and interdependence rather than sameness.
Let us make that concrete with something people can actually picture.
Think about a small, family-run business. 10 people who all know each other well, share a similar sense of the company's mission, and can basically improvise coordination on the fly because everyone understands the same unwritten norms, closer to mechanical solidarity, held together by shared similarity. Now think about a sprawling multinational corporation, tens of thousands of employees across dozens of countries, few of whom have ever met, held together instead by an enormous web of formal processes, contracts, specialized roles, and mutual dependence between departments that barely resemble each other. Finance depending on engineering, depending on sales, depending on legal. Both organizations genuinely hold together. The glue is simply built on almost opposite principles.
Now, has Durkheim's work aged perfectly? Or does it need the same honest complication we have applied to everyone else in this series?
It absolutely needs complicating, and later sociologists have done exactly that. Critics have pointed out that Durkheim's suicide data, remarkable for its era, relied on official government records that were themselves shaped by local reporting practices, religious stigma around suicide, and inconsistent record keeping across different regions, meaning some of his cross-group comparisons may reflect reporting differences as much as genuine underlying behavior. Later researchers have also argued Durkheim underweighted individual psychological factors, treating suicide almost entirely as a social phenomenon when clinical depression and individual mental health clearly play a major role that his framework has less room for. Treat him as a genuine founder who asked exactly the right kind of question, with real limits in the specific data and methods available to him at the time.
There's also a very live, very current version of the enemy argument happening right now.
Extremely live. Rising concern about a loneliness epidemic across many wealthy countries, documented through declining close friendships, shrinking participation in religious congregations, civic organizations, and community groups that used to structure people's regular social life, reads almost like a direct modern sequel to Durkheim's original argument. Researchers studying this decline explicitly use language that traces straight back to him: weaker social integration, weaker shared norms, more individuals navigating major life decisions with less stable communal structure around them than previous generations had.
And the pandemic added a very specific, very measurable stress test to exactly that argument.
It did, and it is still being studied closely. The extended isolation many people experienced during pandemic lockdowns, followed by a genuinely uneven return to prior patterns of in-person work, worship, and community gathering, gave researchers a rare, sharply defined before and after moment to study Durkheim's core claims with modern data. Multiple studies since have documented measurable increases in reported loneliness and certain mental health strains during and after that period, though researchers are still actively debating how much of that effect reflects the isolation itself, exactly Durkheim's territory, versus other overlapping economic and personal stresses layered on top of it. That is a genuinely open, ongoing research question, not a settled one.
So what is the honest, motivating case for actually caring about Durkheim?
Because he proved something that still matters enormously, that the invisible structures holding a community together, shared norms, stable expectations, a sense of clear belonging, are not soft, sentimental extras layered on top of the real business of living. They measurably shape health, stability, and even survival, at a scale you can trace in hard statistics rather than just intuition. Understanding what actually holds a society together and what quietly comes apart when it weakens starts with taking his question as seriously as he did.
Which brings us to a contemporary of his, asking a related question but from a very different angle, moving from Durkheim's large-scale statistics down to something much closer to a single individual moving through a modern city.
Where Durkheim studied whole populations and broad social forces, our next thinker was fascinated by something smaller and stranger: why a person surrounded by more strangers than any human being in history had ever encountered before could end up feeling more alone, not less.
Next time Georg Simmel and the birth of the modern city dwellers blank, unbothered stare. See you then.